I always like to shut down. Reach there at the right time.
Thanks for being here, man.
How are you, brother?
Thank you for good to see you.
For 2 years in class, and they turned out. Oh my gosh.
Hi, welcome. Huh?
Oh, Bishop? How are you, friend?
All right, good.
You ready to make
They
some good
came.
trouble?
Yeah.
They came.
So we put together quite a crew.
The heavy lift. David Butler.
Yeah, thanks for your willingness to serve. Great, I like the periodic table.
Believe me, it's on brand. Just roll out the top.
I think you memorized. Great, well, this is a good turnout.
Bishop, the New York Times found us because I appeared on their podcast. Eternally grateful.
Is that right?
Yeah, good.
How often do you do this podcast?
Well, I kind of put it on hiatus when I started working on
There's only so many hours of the day?
Yeah.
I did.
Bishop, puts this thing on.
Edelen, you look like you've done this.
Once, 1 or 2 or 400 times. So yeah, this will be good.
Oh, with the mic. It's okay with me, I'll work around it.
I think it's a hair a little bit.
You go wrong here, Jeff.
Nothing.
There you get a little bit.
Yeah, a couple of years of conversation.
2 years, yeah.
So I don't know. Look for Josh.
Person or
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good morning, all. My name is Adam Edelen. I'm the founder and CEO of Edelen Renewables, a Lexington, Kentucky-based developer of large and small-scale renewable energy projects around the country that drive social impact. That is, they leave the communities where we develop better off as a result of our work. And I'm excited to be here with all of you this morning as we make history. The history of the Catholic Diocese of Lexington adopting a 2030 sustainability commitment to be net zero within 5 years and to personify the Pope's belief that all people of faith have an obligation in the care for creation. This is based on a couple of years of conversation with my friend, the bishop, about how we galvanize people of faith to come together to understand that this is truly a historic moment in meeting the climate challenge. How do we personify a care for creation, not in some esoteric global way, but in a way that meets people where they live? And it seems to me that a congregation, that a diocese that represents 59 parishes in 60 counties, the entirety of Eastern Kentucky and most of Central Kentucky, is uniquely positioned to lead such an effort. And let's be clear, this effort is not just historic, it is breathtaking in its audacity. The belief that people of faith can come together and organize in such a way that we meet the Lord's teachings in caring for creation is something that is truly extraordinary. You know, in conversations with Bishop Stowe, I have come to believe that caring for creation is truly the Lord's work. And this historic initiative demonstrates that people of faith have an opportunity in this precise moment to meet their obligation to nature and to each other. I'm honored to help lead this effort. I'm honored to be friends with the bishop, and I'm honored to work with the terrific team that we have assembled to support this effort. I will say this as an editorial comment. Bishop Stowe is putting on a masterclass of moral collaborative leadership. To see a church based in Kentucky, to see a religious faith-based institution based in Kentucky take on such an awesome and ambitious effort, not only is an inspiration to those of us in this community, is an inspiration to those around the world who care about creation and who care about one another. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Bishop John Stowe.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for making this day possible and this initiative possible. Today, April 23rd, is the day after Earth Day, but it's also the Feast of St. George. That may not sound like it's anything important, except that Pope Francis's name was Jorge, or George, before he became Pope, and so it's a holiday in the Vatican. So this is our gift to Pope Francis on his name's day. On this day, we take this important step forward because our Holy Father, Pope Francis, has invited us to take seriously the encyclical, the teaching that he gave us back in 2015. In 2015, he borrowed a phrase from Francis of Assisi, who is known as the lover of all creation, who emphasized the interrelationality of all species and creatures 800 years ago. And Pope Francis has picked up on those teachings and lifted up Francis of Assisi as an example of how humanity needs to work together to cross over all kinds of lines of separation and division, culture, and every other way that we find to separate ourselves, and work together to preserve, protect, and allow to flourish our common home. Now, last fall, he issued another document called Laudate Deum, the praise of God, in which he took a little different tone. It was almost scolding in nature because not much has happened since 2015. And in fact, he points out that those who oppose the idea of working for the preservation of the planet, those who deny the reality of climate change, are having too much influence. And so he says, we're losing time. We have to begin to act. But of course, as a leader in the Christian world, Pope Francis can not only see the negative side of things, he has to be a man of hope. And he reminds us that in God, the Creator, something new is always possible. And in the human family, when we decide to work together, when we decide to bring our expertise from various fields, when we decide not to blame each other for what has happened, but to find common solutions together, anything is really possible. What I really like about this net zero initiative, and I first learned about it from a professor named Dan DeLeo at Creighton University, and we put Adam Edelen in touch with him and some efforts across the country and in other parts of the world to see how do we put some measurable action into effect. It's one thing to talk about doing something. It's another thing to put something out there that you can be held accountable to and have measured for you. So we're grateful to have this opportunity. We're grateful to say we're going to do this and reduce our carbon consumption, our carbon footprint, and bring ourselves to net zero in pretty short amount of time, because we only have a pretty short amount of time to make an impact in a lasting way on this world. So I thank you for being here. I thank you to Adam and the wonderful coalition and leadership team that he's put together. I'm grateful to Josh Van Cleef and to our own Laudato Si commission in the diocese that has been working for this many years to get that phrase, Laudato Si, an Italian phrase that comes from St. Francis of Assisi's exuberant praise for God, who is praised by creation just doing its thing, just being itself is praiseworthy to God. So they've made that a little bit more known in our Catholic community and beyond. They've made that teaching a little bit more known in our Catholic community and beyond. And hopefully it's making an impact in churches and homes, and households and businesses, not only here in our Commonwealth, but in so many places. In our diocese of 50 counties, it's important to point out 40 of them are Appalachian counties. And Pope Francis has also been very clear from the beginning that we can't put the burdens of transformation of energy on those who have already suffered the consequences of our prior abuse of the earth. I think in our diocese of many people whose livelihoods come from coal and who have found their work and their dignity and provided for families because of coal at a time when they truly believed and did to the best of their ability, provided for their families and were contributing to the common good by helping things work. But now, knowing what we know, we have to be committed to an economic conversion to make sure that the jobs that are helping people get to work are ones that will protect and preserve our environment. With no blame to those who have gone before with what they didn't know, but with a real immense respect for the human dignity and the value of work, which gives meaning to lives, which allows people a path forward and allows them to provide for their families. So let's not get into the separation and the polarization, but rather let's come together on what we can do to provide for our planet, to lift up all people in our diocese and beyond, and to give praise to God, as Francis of Assisi did, for the marvels of his creation. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Bishop. That was extraordinary and inspiring, and we're all excited about this important work. Of course, the bishop couldn't implement such an aggressive and ambitious strategy for demonstrating a commitment to meeting the climate challenge if it weren't for an excellent staff. And his right-hand man, who's become a brother in arms to me, is Josh Van Cleef. And Josh is managing this process from the church's standpoint. He is our liaison to the church in this initiative, and I'd like you to welcome Josh to the podium. Thank you.
As we approach the 10-year anniversary of Pope Francis' encyclical on the environment, Laudato Si, the call for concrete and measurable efforts to address the climate crisis has become ever clearer, as Bishop mentioned. In his recent apostolic exhortation, Laudate Deum, Pope Francis called on the Church to respond with urgent and decisive action. Climate change, he says, is no longer a secondary or ideological question, but a drama that harms all of us, as the world in which we live is collapsing. This grave reality demands serious action from every sector of society and a bold commitment from the Church. In response to this call from Pope Francis, the Diocese of Lexington is developing its Laudato Si action plan for the entire diocese, which includes developing a plan to bring the diocese to net zero in energy use by 2030. In order to accomplish this goal of net zero carbon emissions, the diocese has convened a task force. I am coordinating the net zero initiative for the diocese with Adam Edelen and Edelen Renewables as our primary advisor. As primary advisor, Adam consults on the overall process, has already assembled a task force, and chairs the task force. This task force advises the diocese in 3 main areas. The first, technology. The task force will evaluate relevant data from the diocese to determine its carbon footprint. It will then propose solutions to bring the diocese to net zero. Secondly, finance. The task force will identify funding sources and partnerships and propose ways for the projects to be financed. And finally, communications. The task force will advise on the strategy to communicate this net zero project to the public from initial planning through the plan's implementation. I will now pass it to Adam here, and he can share a little bit more about the process and the composition of our task force. Thank you.
So the thing about big inspirational efforts like this is that it magnetizes talent. And while most of the story here is the extraordinary, ambitious, and impactful mission under which this process is going to pursue a sustainability commitment, the other part of the story is that when you are willing to be bold, others will come to you. And what's extraordinary about this effort is not just its ambition, but the talent that we have been able to bring to bear to support it. Bishop, reaching beyond divisions, reaching beyond different religious faiths, bringing people together to support an initiative so powerful is what this is all about. And I'm pleased that Lexington and Central Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky's leading corporate citizens have answered the call. We've got a diverse group of extraordinary talent. I think candidly that this is the most impressive concentration and collection of sustainability expertise ever gathered in Kentucky. And while some of our members aren't here today, I do want to I would like each of the members to stand and be recognized. David Absher, who's the Senior Manager of Sustainability and Regulatory Affairs for a little car company you've never heard of called Toyota. Servant leadership. Thank you very much, Bishop. David Butler, who's the head of sustainability at Alltech. John Dom, who's the project sustainability manager at Lexmark. Ed Davis, Director of Property and Plant for the Catholic Diocese of Lexington. Thank you. Stephen Gibson, who's the System Director of Property Management for Appalachian Regional Healthcare. Josh King, who is the Vice President of Facilities Planning and Development at Appalachian Regional Health. Matt Partymiller, the founder and general manager of Solar Energy Solutions and also the chairman of the Kentucky Solar Energy Association. Amy Samples, the chief of staff at Edelen Renewables, for anybody who wanted to know who tells me what to do on the daily. Debbie Swisher, the diocesan finance officer here at the Catholic Diocese of Lexington. And of course, Josh Van Cleef, the director of the Office of Peace and Justice. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause. So we now have been working for 2 months to get the planning process in place. We will spend the next year working in real time with the bishop and his designees to come up with a plan that not only offers a variety of solutions for helping address the diocese carbon footprint, but will actually help do the work of determining the size and scope of that footprint. So we have a lot of work to do between now and 2030. Time flies, and it's the one thing that is not on our side when it comes to meeting the climate challenge. So today the work begins of galvanizing people of faith to leave the world better than we found it. Thank you all for being here, and we'll take questions if anybody has them. We left them speechless, Bishop. All right, thank you all. Really good.